Three. Hello, Wendy. How are you?
Hi, Nizam. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to interview you, Wendy.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So, friends, there are many legends in hypnotherapy, and I'm very fortunate to interview you, one of the living legends of hypnotherapy. I feel Wendy is the queens of hypnotherapy because enough of fathers of hypnosis. We need to know about who are the pioneers of hypnotherapy. And thank you, Wendy, once again. And Wendy is one of the pioneers in the regression work, which one of my another mentors, Daniel, calls as black sheep of regression, hypnotherapy, black sheep of hypnotherapy. So, Wendy,
True.
first, before we get into the most sensitive topic of the field of hypnosis, first question is, how did you get into hypnotherapy?
Well, honestly, I have never been interested in hypnosis.
This is again a contrasting. One of the pioneer in the hypnosis says that she
Was
wasn't interested. Okay,
No,
okay.
it wasn't on my radar at all. I was
Okay.
not interested in hypnosis, but I will back up a little bit and say that I used to own a bookstore. So it was like a metaphysical, personal development. I carried books on spirituality, personal development, spiritual development, meditation, and psychological, both pop psychology, and also I carried a lot of material for the therapists that were in my community.
Okay.
And so that was kind of my jam. And then when I sold the bookstore, I didn't stop buying books. And there was one particular book that I was reading for the 5th time. Now you have to understand, I read a lot.
Okay.
And for me to read a book more than once is really something. But I was on my 5th reading of this book because there was just something about it that was niggling away at me. And it was the name of the book was The Healing Power of, oh my gosh, I've forgotten now. It's been that long. The Healing Power of Illness by Thorwald Dethlefsen. And that book had been published at that time into 25 different languages. So it's been around for a long time. And I don't know, there was something about it that just niggled away at me. And one day I remember this so clearly. I was standing in my dining room and I have a skylight above the dining room table. And it was like, I was looking at this book while I was standing there, and it was like this ray of sunshine came down through the skylight, and I had what I call my V8 moment. Now, a lot of people won't remember these television commercials, but I do. And it was about the beverage called V8, which was all vegetable juices.
Okay.
And the commercial was, the guy would be holding a soda pop or something and go, "Oh, wow, I could have had a V8. And so I had my V8 moment, my knock on the forehead, right? And what I realized in that moment was that all of the research that this author and his companion, his co-author, was a medical doctor. And so all of this research was based on regression hypnosis sessions. And in that moment I went, wait a minute, regression? Isn't that hypnosis? And so within about 6 weeks, I was signed up for my first hypnosis course. I was totally going on intuition. That's it. I just went, oh, okay, I got to learn about that. And so began a long journey through the wild and wonderful world of hypnosis, and eventually into therapeutic hypnosis, and then hypnoanalysis, which is really where I focus.
Wonderful. So please tell me, how was your encounter with your hypnotherapy training? What happened? What interested you to take it as a career?
Well, okay, so what I was interested in was regression. That's what I wanted to know more about that. And when I took my first basic, I've taken 3 basic certification courses, but when I took the first one, there wasn't anything on regression. In fact, the teacher said, no, don't go there. You can do a lot of good with a good progressive relaxation. That was basically all that she wanted to teach us. And the course was basically textbook. We did a lot of, reading in a book and not a whole lot of hands-on. And so when I finished that, I was pretty disappointed because I didn't get what I went there for. I didn't get a glimmer, except that just between completing the class and having our official graduation, a group of the students got together to watch a video. And this video was of a hypnotherapy session, and none of us had ever seen one. We'd done 160 hours. It was 160 hours of training, and had never actually seen a hypnotherapy session.
Oh my God. Okay.
I know.
Huh.
I know it was not the best certification, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So we got together, and secretly, and we slipped the VCR into the machine, and here was this guy. I'd never heard of him before. His name was Gerald Kein, and he did his his famous pre-talk. He always did his pre-talk before he did the session, and then he did the demonstration of this regression to cause session. And it was lightning speed, and it made total sense to me. And in that moment, I went, "That's what I want to be able to do."
Okay.
So I basically signed up for Gerald Kein's training, which was Omni Hypnosis at that time. He's no longer with us, but I took the what was called the distance training course, which meant that instead of traveling down to Florida to take a live training, I figured, well, I've got all the basics, the textbook stuff. I don't need to do that. So I bought the video training instead. And for 9 months, I was Gerald Kein's student. I studied his stuff, and then I practiced with my guinea pigs at home. And through Gerald Kein, that's how I discovered Stephen Parkhill, because Stephen Parkhill was basically his protege, and he was on the board of Omni for like 9 years, and he developed his healing with the mind program, which was what I was interested in. I was interested in somatic healing. And so that finally satisfied what I was looking for, but it was a long and winding road to get there.
Okay. Wow. Wow. And that's when you took a decision that you want to pursue this as a full-time career, Wendie?
I never made the decision that I wanted the career. I was never interested in hypnosis, but I was very curious, and sort of my internal guidance is follow your interests, just follow your interests. And so I wanted to know how stuff works. When it came to healing with the mind, I wanted to know how it works. And that's not something that you can get out of a textbook. You can get sort of the guidance out of a textbook, but then you actually have to sit down and do it with a number of clients, because every individual is different. And so that I was doing more research than I was doing a hypnotherapy practice.
So
I mean, I did it,
as a research to explore more.
Yeah, it was my lab. It was my lab. I was doing research, and I was learning how this stuff works, because that's basically I'm an affective learner, and so that I wanted to, okay, what's that do? And then I found every client was very different, and it didn't matter, that you could get 10 people who came in with a weight problem, for example, but it wasn't the same problem. It was a different problem with each individual. And so, so that was my laboratory. Mind you, I was in the lab for 15 years. So I worked with clients for 15 years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. So Wendie, I will play all those roles who are scared with regression therapy. Okay. This is not Nizam speaking. So I'm trained in solution focus based therapy. I don't touch my clients. There's no point in listening to their problems. There's no point in going back to their past. My focus is to help my clients to be in the present and make their future better. What is the point in touching the memory and making them go through all the trauma? So, regression work is a very dangerous work. Solution focused is what I resonate with. I do not want to harm my clients. What do you say, Wendy?
Well, I get that from a lot of people. Many hypnosis practitioners are taught that regression is harmful.
Mhm.
They're taught that you're going to re-traumatize your client. They're taught that you don't need that. All you got to do is, give them a good progressive relaxation induction and then future pace them, and that's going to solve the problem. And so I'm at a stage now here where I'm not interested in convincing someone, it's not a religion. The question that I would give to you is, well, are you happy with the results you're getting? Are you getting lasting results? When a client comes to you with an issue, are you resolving it for good? Or are you just helping them to improve? Because regression to cause is about resolving the underlying cause of the problem so the client doesn't have the problem anymore. So we don't treat symptoms. I was never interested in symptom management. I never did pain management. I never did sports improvement. I focused specifically on regression to cause. Because, I'm not a spring chicken. I didn't have time for that. I had to focus on one thing and get really good at it. And so that what you're talking about, I consider that a surface technique. It's effective for a lot of things. And not every client is going to not every client wants to dig out the roots of the dandelion crop that they've got in there. They're happy to just mow the lawn every week, and that's fine. You give what the client wants. But what I found in my practice is that 99% of the time, the clients who wanted surface techniques, I referred them out. I never took them on. I said, no, I don't do that, because I'm not really good at it. I don't focus on that stuff. So I would refer them out to someone who just did the surface, techniques. And the clients that I got had already tried everything else. They'd already tried the brain imaging stuff, and they'd already tried the neurolinguistic programming, and they'd already been to the doctors, and they'd been to the naturopaths, and they tried the various supplements, and you name it, they'd already tried it. And they were really at the end of the rope. So the first thing you do when somebody comes to you is you ask them, well, what have you tried? I've done this and this and this and this. And you say, well, we're not going to do that, because they already know it's not going to work. So this is really only for those people who are willing to dig down and find out, where is this coming from, and let's take care of it for good.
Okay, so Wendy, what I hear from you people who practice regression to cause, okay, there is one cause, but there could be multiple causes. On what basis can you say that this is the root cause and this is what needs to be addressed and the whole problem is solved? There could be n number of causes. So you
Yes.
keep on digging the client's past
Yes.
and past and past. What benefit are they going to get?
Well, that's a good point. The idea of regression to cause is that this is where we get down to the thought cause alignment pattern that's in my book. Okay, so when you're tracking something back to the cause, you're following the emotion, because the subconscious mind is the emotional mind. So what we want to do is follow the emotion, because that's the signal that's coming out of the event that caused it. Okay, so you can be following fear back, but there's 100,000 different kinds of fears, aren't there?
Yes, yes.
Right. And so you might be dealing with a client who, let's say they have a fear of spiders. So you can track that back to the first time that they were ever frightened by a spider, but that's seldom the cause. So we want to go back to the first time they felt that fear. The time that they experienced the fear of the spider is what we call the symptom producing event. That's when that fear got anchored to spiders. That's the anchoring event. but it's not the causal event. That's where they learn to attach that fear to that particular experience. And so we want to go back and find that. So that would be what we would call a simple phobia. It's a one, usually it's only one, what's called an initial sensitizing event, one causal event. But when you get clients coming in who have multiple symptoms, then you're very often going to find that there's more than one causal event. Now, a whole bunch of those symptoms can be tied to a single event. It's true.
Okay.
But you might find that they've got, they can be suffering from, well, I'm not even going to give you a list. Just consider that a client comes to you and you've got to make a list of all those symptoms and then follow the feeling back, clear everything up that's attached to that particular feeling. And then you find out when you test the results between sessions, you find out what disappeared. What did it take care of? And then you deal with what's left. Okay. So that's the kind of the answer to your question. How do you know? We test. I'm very big on testing. I test everything. I test the client before we begin the healing process. I test them while we're doing the regression. I test for the ISE. I test the results afterwards. I test to make sure that everything's been cleaned up while we're doing it's just basically it's a process of testing the results before you move on to the next step.
Okay. And which means someone has gone through some sexual trauma in their childhood, or molestation or bullying, whatever kind of abuse and trauma. Yeah. So isn't it like opening the can of worms? And then
okay, so there's a couple of things about that. One is that molestation abuse tends not to be a one-time event. Okay. I mean, if it is, it's pretty simple to clear up. Okay. For example, I had a client who was gang raped. She was in the military and she was gang raped by her compatriots, right? But that was a one-time event. There wasn't anything that might have prepared her for that. She trusted these guys, and this was really it was more of a betrayal than anything. So that's a one-time event, but generally, if it's in childhood, you're going to find that there's multiple events. And so that adds complexity because it's kind of a recurring theme over and over again. So we don't want to visit all of those events. What we want to do is find the very, very first time that something happened. And so with a situation of abuse, often if it's early in childhood, it's not really traumatic. It's often with someone that is trusted. It's someone that the child wants to get love and affection from. Often, not always, but in that case, usually the problem is that the child is confused by this because they're given the message to keep a secret. And this is not congruent for a child. Children are very transparent. They're very honest. They will tell you what's going on with them. And when this is called the oath, right? And when there's this contract is made between the abuser and the child, that's what creates the problem.
Okay. So that is the case of someone who doesn't remember what has happened in their childhood. Sometimes they might remember, but how far it is like taking them to that specific event and they relive it. There's a lot of emotions coming up and all that. Is it really needed, Wendie, for a person who has already been through a painful situation? You're taking them again to that place.
Well, we are not, I don't know how it is where you live, but where I live, we're not in a culture that honors our feelings. We have feelings and emotions. We're mammals, okay? And all mammals experience feelings and emotions. And the problem with feelings and emotions is not that we have them, it's that we put a lid on them and we hold on to them and they get trapped in the body. And so this is because human beings are thinking mammals, and we use thinking to shut off our emotional body, and therefore we're not really running on all four cylinders, are we? when we stop ourselves from feeling those emotions. So then we decide that's a bad feeling and this is a good feeling, and we want to avoid the bad feelings. But those what we have decreed to be bad feelings are actually part of our biological feedback system. They tell us, like, fear is a feeling that tells us, oh, you know, danger, something bad might happen. And that tells us we need to run to safety. That's the message that a child gets when he or she experiences fear. Run to safety, run to mama, you know. Anger tells us, you know, that when fear doesn't give us the opportunity, if there's no opportunity to run away, then anger will step in and say, I'm going to protect you. And that's the protective mechanism of the subconscious mind. And sadness is about grieving our losses. We need to grieve our losses as part of the human experience. And so honoring our feelings and emotions, it really involves allowing ourselves to experience them. The feelings that become overwhelming for a person are generally, if they're overwhelming for a child, is because the child is too young to process them. They lack the maturity to make sense of what they're experiencing, and it's probably too much energy for them, for their little bodies to process at that time. And the biggest problem there is that there's no one there to help them process what's happening. You're okay. You're allowed to have that feeling. You know, you're safe. Well, I got you, right? When we're adults, this is a learned behavior. We learn to repress our feelings in childhood. Now, repression is very healthy response for a child, because it kind of shuts down something that would be too much to handle. But when that becomes a learned pattern of behavior, whenever that negative, uncomfortable feeling comes up and you repress it, now you've got a problem, because that energy is building up strength inside. It's building up like a pressure cooker. And sooner or later, it's going to find a way to express. So this is where you get, for example, rageaholics. That's someone who's got a lid on their anger, and then some little thing will just trick them off, and they can't control it. It comes out like an explosion. Or physical disease that is, this is the psychobiology. So physical conditions that are rooted in unresolved emotions, they'll find expression through the body. And that's usually the end of the line. It's a long time of ignoring and repressing and suppressing those emotions. And eventually it's like, you know, there's only one way to get the attention of the conscious mind, and that is through some kind of a physical symptom.
Okay, okay. So, what is your answer if someone who wants to go through a regression session but is shit scared of, what if something uncomfortable, what is something which I don't want to face might come up? So what is your answer for that?
So my answer to that is, so if a client says, well, I don't want to experience that feeling again, and I'll say, well, you're experiencing it every day. That's what the symptoms are.
Okay, okay.
Okay, whatever the symptoms are that you want to resolve, that's how that emotion is expressing. So my approach is, why don't we just get honest and face the real problem? And and here's what you need to know. Uncomfortable feelings don't last very long. The worst feeling you'll ever have will last no longer than 90 seconds if you let yourself feel it. But if you shut it down, if you put a lid on it, if you stuff it, then it just churns. It just replays over and over and over again. And this is the problem that most people have, is that it keeps replaying because they haven't let it finish. So what we want to do is, we call this releasing. We want to find that feeling and give it permission to express. So if that fear wants to say, I feel scared, maybe it wasn't safe for the child to say that at that time. But what if they just said, I feel scared? And then really notice, where are you feeling that? I'm feeling, it's in my tummy, it's in my chest, I can't breathe, I feel really scared. Great. Acknowledge that. Validate it. You're allowed to feel scared. There's a reason that that's happening. You see, it's not rational now for the adult. I keep having this irrational fear. I keep coming back to phobias, because that's really the model for it. All negative emotion is rooted in fear. So if you study the phobia model, yeah, you'll have your answers. And that is that the phobia that is being experienced now is the end point in a long history of shutting down that fear that wants to express.
Okay, okay,
Does that make
amazing.
sense?
Yes, yes. So, Wendy, I keep hearing from you like feel it to heal it, feel it to heal it. What do you mean by that? It is so uncomfortable. There's anger, there's sadness, there's anxiety. And on the other hand, you are encouraging people to feel the emotions.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it fair?
Because
Is it fair enough
because
to ask
feeling is
people to
natural,
feel it?
because we are human, we are mammals, we have emotions, and what causes the discomfort is not allowing the emotion to express. It wants to express, so why not give it permission to express? That discomfort won't last more than 90 seconds. Anybody can handle 90 seconds. Any grown-up can handle 90 seconds, right? And then
Yes.
when you implement tools like tapping, which helps to move the energy through the energy system of the body, it just makes it that much easier. So we've got tools that we can use to make it easier for a person to allow the expression of that emotion so that it can finish. And what happens is that when you release an emotion completely, when it's finally, it's like a little kid that's throwing a tantrum. When the tantrum's over, the client will feel better. And because what it does is it creates a void. And that void begins to fill up with your authentic energy, which is like I believe we're hardwired for well-being. And as soon as you get that uncomfortable feeling out, that void will fill with that feeling of well-being. And this is what I've found over the years. The person will just say, I feel better, or I feel grateful. Gratitude is a common experience, or I just have this tremendous feeling of relief. I don't have that pressure inside anymore. You know, anxiety is a feeling of internal antsy sort of pressure. And what happens when the pressure's gone? The person goes, wow, I can breathe again. I feel this relief. That's the benefit of feel it to heal it.
Okay, okay. And Wendy, why do you think regression is not being taught in many of the hypnotherapy schools?
Well, I don't think there's any one answer really to that. First of all, it's an advanced technique. It's not something that you could learn at a basic level of training. At the basic level, you need to learn how to facilitate inductions. You need to learn how to observe responses to suggestion. You need to work slowly so that you have the time to observe. Oh, when I give that suggestion, I notice this is happening. You need to notice what's happening, because that's the feedback that you're getting from the client. So it's really, the basic level is more about the art of suggestion, but suggestion is the basis of everything that we do. So you really need to practice that first. So we start with the surface techniques, which are all suggestion based. So that would also include guided imagery or affective imagery. So imagine that you're moving along a path and notice that you can hear the sound of your feet on the path, and you can feel the wind through your hair, and so you can build these sort of sensory experiences, and you can get feedback from the client. What are you noticing as that happens? Because this is what builds your skill as a suggestion artist. Once you've got that down, then you can move to a more advanced level, and that's where you start doing stuff like parts dialogue, which is really just Gestalt, right? Where you can start facilitating dual consciousness. So you need to learn how to create dual consciousness so that the client can play multiple roles. And this teaches you how to sort of it's more about negotiation skills than anything, with parts therapy. But parts work is it's the core work of regression therapy, because what we want to do is find where the problem occurred, and then we use the parts work to facilitate that's the change work that happens in the core of the regression work. and the more advanced level is really the hypnoanalysis, and that you know, a certain amount of that can be taught, but by and large, it really comes out of your ability to observe and gain experience from your own clients, and then you start to notice patterns. And for me, this was sort of an innate skill that I had, because before I ever got into hypnosis, I was a dream worker. And I'll tell you, working with your own dreams will absolutely develop your ability to notice patterns. That's the key. So when you're working with a client, you go, oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Or there's that turn of a phrase, certain things that the client will feed back to you, and you go, oh, you know, the language is so very important. I'm fascinated with etymology right now. This is the thing I'm studying right now. And, you know, the root meaning of words. And, you know, so much of this we are completely unaware of. We unconsciously use language that we don't really understand. And so this fascinates me. So there really is it's kind of like you go to elementary school and you learn inductions and deepeners, and you know, and you learn to sort of notice things. And then when you get to high school, you start to learn how to facilitate interactions. It's like learning communication skills in high school. And then when you get to university, you start learning more of the psychological underpinnings, because hypnotherapy follows psychotherapy. And you can't just dive into psychotherapy. You got to have that foundation first.
Thank you. And Wendy, if someone got certified as a hypnotherapist, including the regression and all that work, however, like let's say in the beginning, one is started to regressing their client, and what they have come for and what has emerged is totally two different things, or multiple things have come. So what is your suggestion? Of course, we are going to talk about your course that you have developed for all these purposes, but however, what is your suggestion in such situation?
Yeah, before hold that, I want to back up, because I don't think I answered your previous question. Why is regression
Why?
not?
Yes.
Right. So it's not taught at a basic level. It's an advanced level, and many hypnosis practitioners never go on to learn anything more than, you know, many hypnosis practitioners just love what they do, and that's why they do it. They do it because it's for themselves. It feels good, right? Because I was never interested in hypnosis and I didn't really enjoy it, I never did it for me. I did it for the client. And so it was very, so whatever the symptom was, this will answer your question here. Whatever their presenting issue was, that was therefore the goal of the therapy, was to resolve that issue. So, schools tend not to teach regression for two reasons. One is that they're really, the money is in the basic certification. Mm-hmm. There's that. The second thing is that many trainers are not trained in regression. They don't know how to do regression. They don't know how to teach it. And many have been taught in basic training that it's dangerous. I was. And I can tell you right now, it's no more dangerous than what people are doing to themselves in the privacy of their own minds. However, if you are not skilled, if you haven't got the training in regression, then, you know, you may find that you may find yourself in over your head, because it's a much deeper level of therapy than maybe facilitating parts mediation, for example. That said, I recommend that people get some training in regression, simply because clients are going to regress whether you want them to or not. The moment that a client starts feeling a strong emotion, they're already regressing. Now, to someone who's trained in regression, they rub their hands together and say, yahoo, let's go. Because the client is giving you a shortcut to the resolution of their problem. You don't need to muck around with the symptoms. The symptoms are just subconscious communication. That's how the innermost part of the client, the subconscious mind, is trying to communicate that there is a problem. So we want to honor that and say, yeah, there's a problem. Where's it coming from? Why does it need to communicate in this way? Why? That's a great question. Why? Why this symptom and not another? Why colon cancer and not a headache? Why an anxiety attack and not a full-blown phobia? Why? And it has to do with how that particular underlying feeling developed in that person's life over time. So it's all about their story. This is what I taught in the dream working course. It's about the story. You want to uncover the story. Don't get caught up in the story, but what's the pattern that's developing over time? And what you'll find is that little nugget is right back there in that particular event. If they've got multiple symptoms, there may be more than one event that you need to go to. But it isn't a never-ending story, because the client will always come in with one. You always deal with one symptom, one issue, one symptom at a time. So you're not, I mean, I have had clients that have come to me for a year or for 2 years, but they were coming in and saying, I want to work on this now. I want to work on this now, because it's like, wow, this works. Yes. So help me with this issue. So that is, but for the most part, any single issue was just a matter of so many sessions. Most people I worked with were for 6 or 7 sessions. Okay.
And what's your suggestion for the people who just newly got certified and but still not feeling confident, or how to troubleshoot these situations and all that? What kind of books, like courses, now we are getting into the work that your gift to our hypnotherapy field? So what inspired you to develop this?
If you're newly certified, you want to focus on the art of suggestion. And and the key is it's called elegance. Elegance is the ability to deliver a powerful suggestion, powerful being that it elicits a response in the client in as few words as possible. So because it's, it just makes sense, right? You don't want to ramble on for 30 minutes when you can make one suggestion and then let that sink in. And then you want to reinforce that one suggestion so that it becomes a powerful seed in the mind of the client. So a great example, of course, is Stephen Parkhill. I was actually thinking about this last night. In his regression pattern, he'd say, there's a feeling inside that you just don't like. That's the first line. There's a feeling, you have a feeling inside. It's a feeling you just don't like. That's an elegant suggestion, because first of all, that you have a feeling inside is true. So there isn't any objection to that. When you say it's a feeling inside that you just don't like, you're giving a command to the subconscious mind to go find it. That feeling has everything to do with whatever the problem is that you came to see me about. Now you're getting more specific. Subconscious mind is very specific. Okay, I have lots of feelings that I don't like. Subconscious mind, I'm going to play subconscious mind here. Okay, yeah, I got feelings in here I don't like. They're uncomfortable. I've been trying to get the conscious mind to pay attention to me for a long time, but it won't because they're uncomfortable. I need help with this. That feeling has everything to do with this problem that you came to see me with. Oh, that feeling. Oh, okay, let me go get that. So what's happening as you're using these suggestions, this sequence of, it's code. A suggestion is code. You're delivering code to the subconscious mind, and you're telling it to go get that feeling. And so what's happening as you're giving these suggestions, you're observing the client. Okay, and you'll notice they start getting tense, they start getting uncomfortable, and that tells you that feeling is starting to present. It's starting to come up. And when that happens, you can reinforce it and say, there it is, there's the feeling. I can see that you're feeling that feeling. True or false, you feel that feeling. And the client will say yes, and you go, where are you feeling that feeling in your body? Because that's where we feel our emotions. We feel them physically. And so what we're looking for is for a targeted feeling. It's going to be in the throat, the chest, or the gut. If it's all over, you can't work with that. That's anxiety. If it's all over, no, you need specific targeted, single, one feeling. Oh, if they say, oh, it's in my throat, my chest, and my gut, you say, where is it strongest? Oh, in my gut. That's the feeling. You want to pick the one that's really tugging on the apron strings and saying, you know, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. That's what we do. We honor the subconscious mind. It's begging us to pay attention, and so we give it what it wants.
Wow.
So that's the key to exceptional hypnotherapy, is to develop the basic skills that you learned, because that's the ground. So develop your skills in working with the art of suggestion. And the best way to do that is to study other people's pattern. Find the masters like Stephen Parkhill or Gerald Kein or Charles Tebbets or whoever. But those
Wendie Webber.
individuals, you got a whole list, right? You know who those guys are. Look them up and read their scripts, and then study them. What are they saying? What that line there? What is that invoking? What's that code supposed to do? And you'll find that even in a script, it's broken down to, usually it has to do with, the first part will be validating the problem, because it's like a marketing script, right? You have a problem. And the client's going, yeah, I have a problem. It's a really uncomfortable problem. Yes, it is. You need help with that problem. I absolutely do. You're setting up a yes frame, right? But it's also building rapport. You get me. The subconscious mind is going, yes, you get me. You're so uncomfortable. You've suffered with this pain for long enough. It's time to do something about it. And now you're building motivation. So that beginning script, if you're going to work with a script, or you're going to write a script, learn how to write a script, then you'll be able to do it on the fly that's based on what the client gives you, not from something that's, cookie cutter. But you can take someone else's script and you can customize it to the client.
Yes.
And that's where it really has power. So because, the masters have figured out what works, why fight with that? But there's going to be, if you're paying attention to your client, you're going to find that the words that they used. So let's say you're dealing with pain, but the client keeps using the word suffering. Then you want to work that word suffering into their script, because that's their language.
Yes.
These are power words. And then if it happens to be, a maladaptive, or not an affirming word, use it and then cancel it out later.
That's awesome.
So in the past, where you had the suffering, more and more you find you are experiencing comfort and peace, and you give yourself permission to be more relaxed in those situations, and so on and so forth.
What a beautiful phrase. Thank you, Wendie. And Wendie, is it possible that though a person has now uncovered the initial sensitizing event, the very root cause of what they are going through, yet it may take some time to heal? That a person has become aware, but healing is happening in phases. Is it possible such situations can happen?
Okay, so first of all, awareness is seldom enough. Insight is seldom enough. Okay, so you can regress a person and you can do the uncovering work, and you can test and say, yeah, that's the ISC. Absolutely. We've tested that. We know it is.
Okay.
And then you do the uncovering work and the client goes, oh, I get it. I know, this is what happened. And now I know why I have this bad feeling. But they continue to have the bad feeling.
Yeah.
And that's because insight isn't enough.
Okay.
Right. So this is like you can have a client come in and they say, oh, I know exactly where the problem got started. It's that experience I had when I was 12 years old and I fell off the pony and I bumped my head. And ever since then, I've been afraid of bees' nests or something, you know, and they'll tell you, I know that's when that happened. So you can go back and you can do a directed regression to that event. I would, because the client wants to go there.
Yes.
And then I would do the uncovering and then I would test for the ISC. Okay, is this problem coming from this event? 90% of the time it isn't. But, you know, sometimes they've nailed it. In that case, it could be that there is something that happened in that event that they were not consciously aware of at the time. Okay, or it's something they've repressed from their memory. And this is where we want to use somnambulism, allows the revivification of the event so that they can uncover the stuff they're not consciously aware of. And that's where you get that, oh, I didn't realize, you know, that how many times have I heard, I didn't realize how much that had affected me. So that's sort of an insight. But the uncovering, where I want to go deeper than that, because what I found is that if you don't release the emotion in the event, it's not resolved. They've still got that feeling. So you've got to address that feeling, because what happened was, let's say that they had an event early in life and it generated fear. And now they understand why the fear was generated. They understand that they had a fright and there probably wasn't any reason for that fear. But the fear is still there because maybe they sucked in their breath at the time and it trapped it in the energy field. And so what you want to do is say, well, okay, let's just go back and release that fear. And this is why I like doing the work in the causal event, because it's usually very small. It's the first time they ever felt that feeling. It's the seed planting event. So usually it's not this big, explosive, overwhelming feeling. It's just something small that grew into it's like the acorn that grew into an oak tree. I want to resolve it at the roots because it's easier on everybody. And I want to release that feeling so that there isn't a seed there. I want to pluck out the roots. And the roots is the emotion. It's not what happened. It's not the story. The story is just, it's the context that allows the understanding. And that understanding can be very useful later if someone else was involved, for example. And when it comes time to do the forgiveness work, it's that understanding that you can call upon.
Okay, got it.
So it becomes a tool in your toolbox. But the story itself, the only thing that's really important in the regression work is releasing the emotion that got trapped inside. And so sometimes it's a matter of understanding that, okay, so if it's an irrational fear, you know, 2-year-old thinks is being dropped off at daycare, and 2-year-old thinks mommy's abandoning me. She's never coming back. Okay, that's an irrational fear, and that fear can grow up to an adult to be an abandonment fear, you know, if it gets reinforced over time. So what we want to do is we want the understanding at the adult level, because this is hypnoanalysis. This is where the adult mind of the client, or the conscious mind of the client, says, well, that's dumb. Of course mom's coming back. This is daycare. And this is where we want to release the emotion. We say, yeah, but 2 doesn't know that. 2 doesn't know that. This is the first time 2's ever been dropped off at a stranger's house and mom's left them. 2 doesn't know that mom's not coming back. So here's where your parts work comes in. Why don't you tell 2, mommy's coming back? Hi, I'm grown up you. Guess what? Mommy's going to come back. She's going to be back in a couple hours. You don't know this, but she'll be back. You watch. And the child, you check and say, do you trust grown up? Yeah, I do. Do you believe grown up? Yeah, I do. Notice how you feel now. That in itself can release the feeling. Or you can just hit it head on, and you can do some tapping, or you can do some pillow work or whatever. Just, whatever methods you use to release emotion, then use that and make sure that that event is now clear. So this is the testing part of the event. What we do is once we've released the emotion, we say, okay, it's all going to play out just like it did the first time. And I want you to notice what's changed. So we rewind and we replay. This is a Stephen Parkhill technique. Rewind, replay the event. Only 2 gets to know what he didn't know before. So now 2 knows that mommy's going to come back. 2 knows that this stranger is a safe person. 2 knows that it's all going to be okay, that nothing bad is going to happen. And 2 is dropped off by mom at the stranger's house, and 2 goes in and plays with the toys.
Wonderful.
There's no fear, right? It doesn't happen. How it would have happened had 2 understood, had someone taken the time to basically help 2 feel safe in that situation. So that's really the only thing we change in an event is the feeling.
Awesome. Awesome. So what now, let's get into your gifts to the hypnotherapy world. But first of all, tell, like, is it like what made you to name this devil's therapy, Wendie? So what is the background?
Well, I love story, as you know, and when I had the bookstore, the men's movement came out, and so this was men discovering their feminine energy. This was men discovering their emotions, that it was okay for them to feel their emotions, and so they'd get together in therapy groups and they'd bang drums and they'd sing and yell and rage and do all kinds of fun stuff. And I supported this. I carried material that was related to the men's movement. And I listened to a lot of material that was for the men's movement so that I could be a good provider of information for those who were facilitating us. So one of the individuals in this group was called, his name was Robert Bly. He was a poet. And he was a great storyteller. And in one of his programs, he shared a story about the devil's, was it him? Yeah, it was the devil's grimy brother. Anyway, it's a Grimm's fairy tale, the devil's grimy brother. And I loved the story, and it just stuck with me for many years. And when I got to studying therapeutic hypnosis, I started to notice a pattern. And I noticed that it matched the story. Okay. And so eventually what I did was I took the story, I don't know if you can see that, and I broke it all down, just like working a dream. I just worked it like a dream, and I explained how each stage of the story was reflecting the therapeutic process.
Wow. Amazing. And what inspired you to write further series of the books, and can you please explain about those books also?
Well, all of the people who were instrumental in helping me to understand the regression to cause, Jerry Kein, Stephen Parkhill, Matt Sisson, Randy Shaw, many others, people that I trained with, nobody wrote a textbook. And I went to a regression a boot camp, and I said, you got to write a textbook, because people were furiously making notes in class. And of course, if you're making that many notes, you're not really paying attention to what's happening in the class. And I said, you guys, you got to write a textbook. But this is the problem, that really good therapists are often doers. They're not writers or researchers. They just do, and they find, and so I used to call these guys in the regression boot camp, I used to call them Top Guns, because they get in in an F-16 fighter, jet, and they'd go off and they'd do the session, and then all the students would be, what just happened?
Okay. And
they knew what they were doing. They knew when they needed to veer left or veer right or get out the guns. They knew what to do, but the students were going, well, why did you do that? And so I've always been a writer, and I leaned more toward the research than I did to the actual doing. And so it was actually after one class, I went back and said to my roommate, who is a psychotherapist, and I said, these guys, they really need to write, they need to do this and do that and do this. And she looked at me and she said, you know what you just told me? I says, no. And she says, you just told me what you need to do.
Okay. Wow.
So I did.
So can you please tell about the second book that you have written, Wendie?
The second book?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. The second book was Ditch the Script.
Ditch the Script.
Yeah. So this one is get everything you need from the client for successful hypnotherapy and set up to wrap up with results. So for myself, I have found that the key to, let's say, ease, if you want ease in your therapy sessions, then the key is to have steps that you can follow. You don't have to do everything all at once. You just need to do things in the right order. And then the next step will happen very easily. And so what I found was that setup was the key to making things happen very easily. So instead of trying to bulldoze your client to go somewhere that they don't want to go, I found that if you just took them back a step, okay, they don't want to go there, fine. Take a step back, find out what the block is, do a little setup, and they'll take the step very easily. So I started to focus on setup. That was it. And really, that's all we ever have to do is just know what the next step needs to be and set up for it. And if you set up well in advance, it'll all just happen like dominoes. It becomes very easy. So this book here, this Ditch the Script, is about getting the information from your client, and that happens before you begin the hypnosis. So for example, this book covers how to qualify your client, because not every client's going to be right for you. And so I have what I call six critical questions, qualifying questions that you can ask a client just when they call you up, and you can use them, these questions, to both determine whether or not that is the right client for you, but also to set your client up for the very first session so that they're primed before they even show up. And you can book your session if they're, if they're fit for you, you book them in for the session. But while you're doing this, you're actually preparing the client so that they show up wearing bells and are ready to rock and roll when you get them into the chair. The other part of this book is about the intake process. And this is where the conscious mind tells you its tale of woe. And we really need to listen to the conscious mind. I was taught conscious mind knows nothing. Subconscious mind has all the answers. Just get them into hypnosis and go to work. But what I found is that if you don't listen to the conscious mind, it's going to get in the way. It's going to want to try and control the session. But if you satisfy the needs of the conscious mind first, listen to its story, validate what it has to say, find out what worked, what didn't work, what it's willing to do, what it's not willing to do, then you can use your pre-talk to address all of those objections. And also, if you listen first, the conscious mind's going to be more willing to listen to you. You're not just saying, okay, here's what's going to happen, right? Okay. The conscious mind doesn't want to hear that. The conscious mind wants you to listen to it. I know what the problem is because I have the problem. Good, tell me about it. What's going on? How do you know you have a problem? Right? So you let the conscious mind talk. Now, the interesting thing is that while this is happening, the subconscious mind isn't out of the picture. You don't have to have the client in hypnosis. That we do waking hypnosis or waking suggestion. The subconscious mind is alert and aware 24/7. So while the conscious mind is telling you all this stuff and you're going, and you're making notes and it's going, good, finally somebody's listening, right? And so you're satisfying that need. The subconscious mind is getting a message from you, and that message is, you can be trusted to listen. You are interested in what's really going on. Okay, so this is a covert approach to basically giving a suggestion to the subconscious mind that you can follow my directions because I'm here to help.
Amazing, amazing. Wow.
And so
This
your
itself
intake
is
process.
a course on regression. This talk
Pardon me?
itself is turning into a mini course on regression.
Well, you know, that's why I'm here. I wanna help hypnosis practitioners get really good at helping their clients to get the results that they want and deserve. You know, so many people are suffering. They have problems that they've been struggling with for, all the clients I saw, they'd been dealing with the problem, you know, for their entire life. And when you can set a person free from a problem that they've struggled with for many, many years, and when they've tried everything else, you know, they're ripe and ready to work with you, you will not find a more satisfying line of work because you're going to transform lives. And here is something that a lot of people don't think about. When you transform one life, you are dropping a pebble into a pond, and that pond has a ripple effect. And everyone that is in the field of that individual, like that change that's occurring in their consciousness, that ripple effect goes out to everyone that's in their sphere of influence. And so you are literally transforming the world. I know you probably know all the research that was done with meditation and how a small group of people could meditate in Washington and they could actually, you know, create peace all over the world. Right? That's the pebble in the pond. It doesn't take, you know, you don't need to get out the bulldozers. You can drop a pebble in. But sometimes to get the pebble in, we have to kind of, you know, we got to get the blocks out of the way to do that.
And please tell me about your third book.
My third book is Radical Healing.
Okay. Yes, a little further. Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not picking it up. Anyway, it's Radical Healing, the Hypnosis Practitioner's Guide to Harnessing the Healing Power of the Educational Pre-Talk. Jerry Kein said over and over again, you know, the three keys to successful hypnotherapy are pre-talk, pre-talk, pre-talk. Okay, because you need to, again, this goes with setup. You need to prepare the client before you ask them to go or to do anything. So really, we're doing pre-talk all the time. When you say in a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. At the count of 3, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's pre-talk. We're letting the client know in a moment, something's going to happen. In a moment, I'm going to do something. In a moment, and this is the response I want from you, or, you know, I want you to notice or whatever. So everything is pre-talk, but the educational pre-talk is what happens before we begin the hypnosis. When you're doing standard hypnosis or basic hypnosis, you know, direct suggestion therapy, you only need to prepare your client for the hypnosis. So you need to teach them that hypnosis is safe and you know, basically it's just preparing them to allow the hypnosis to happen, because we go in and out of hypnosis every single day, about every 70 minutes. We're cycling. It's through these ultradian rhythms. We're cycling in and out of hypnosis, just, you know, brainwave patterns, right? And so if you educate the client in a way that makes the hypnosis safe, then they're not going to be thinking to themselves, oh, you know, is it happening? Am I in hypnosis? Oh, what if? You want that thinking mind to stay off on the sideline. So you need to teach them to do that, right? I don't want you thinking about anything. I want you to just listen to my instructions, do what I tell you, and it'll all happen very easily. You've been doing it your whole life. I'm just going to help you to do it in a way that you can create the change that you want. So that's essentially the pre-talk for hypnosis. But when you want to do regression, there's all those objections that you need to beat before the client has time to even think about them. So you just put it out there. A lot of people think, you know, most of our problems got started early in life. How long you had the problem? Oh, my whole life. Right. So guess what? That's where we need to go.
Yes.
Right? You didn't start yesterday. It started back then. So we need to go back and find out, well, you know, what happened to cause this. And so this is where I integrate into the pre-talk. I teach the client the tools that they're going to need, because there's things that we're going to do. Like I like to teach them tapping while we're doing the pre-talk, right?
That's
I want to
my
show
favorite
them you can feel better, right? Like right now you're feeling what? Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Great. Let's just, you notice where you're feeling that in your body. Oh, I can feel it in my chest. My heart's kind of pounding a little bit. Oh, okay. How'd you like to reduce that a little bit? You don't have to remove it. Just like, how'd you like to take some of that down? Oh, that'd be great. Super. Follow me.
Mm.
And do 1 or 2 rounds and then notice, check inside. Is it the same, worse, or better? And if they say it's the same, then you know, okay, that's got deep roots. That's coming from somewhere, because there's nothing happening here or now to cause it, right? So that's a feeling maybe we want to pull out and follow. If they say it's worse, then you know you're on the money, right? Because that's the feeling that is just saying that, yeah, pick me. And if they say they feel better, great. Let's validate that. I feel better. Notice it. All I did was tap a few points and let myself feel the feeling, and I released some of it, and now I feel better. So now you've provided proof to the client that you can help them to feel better. Yes. So then when you take them back into an event and that difficult feeling comes up, you can say, great. Do you want to hold on to that feeling, or do you want to release it? Oh, I want to release it, because they know how. They know what that means. So these are things that you can integrate into your pre-talk, and it becomes, I call it educational, because we're really teaching the client how to behave in the session. Makes your job easier.
Yes.
Right.
Awesome.
So I want to get rid of all the resistance, or as much of the resistance as I can. Yeah. So a lot of that can be taken care of either during your because those 3 things work together. The first call from the client, you're already beginning the pre-talk process, because you're going to find out what their expectations are. So what do you think hypnosis is? That's a question you want to ask them. What do you think hypnosis is? Because they might say, well, that's where you're gonna make me unconscious and tell me what to do. And then you can go, yeah, I know a lot of people think that. And you can kind of, make light of it. And you say, but actually, here's what it is. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. It's not something I do. Okay, yeah. I'm just a teacher. I'm just a guide. But what I can do is I can teach you how to use this wonderful natural gift you already have. You're using it each and every day. I can teach you how to use that in a way that is very healing. Would you be interested in learning that? So now you're shifting things into the client's responsibility. See, I'm not going to make it happen. You're responsible for the results. And you're shifting the role from, I'm not the fixer, I'm the guide in the process. So maybe that happens in the qualifying process. And then during the intake, the client is going to be revealing certain things. I always ask them, so what was it like growing up in childhood? Mm-hmm. Because I want to tell the subconscious mind, we're going to be digging around there. What do you need to tell me about that? And as the conscious mind is revealing stuff, often feelings will start to come to the surface. This is a great opportunity right there. If they start feeling uncomfortable, like, oh, me and mom, we never got along. She was so mean to me, and it's going, oh, I notice you're feeling something right there. What feeling are you feeling? I'm feeling really angry. Great. Would you like to release some of that right now and feel better? So any opportunity, right, it can happen at any stage. And then the pre-talk isn't like a lot of hypnosis practitioners think that they can, give the client a recorded pre-talk, and that they're going to show up all ready, ripe and ready to go, so they can, okay, get in the chair, bang, we're going to slap you into hypnosis and go to work. And it's like, nah, because your pre-talk is where you are developing rapport. Your pre-talk is where you're finding out exactly what those objections are and what the client needs to understand in order to release the objection. It's, you just, a canned pre-talk just isn't going to get the job done. It's part of, it's part of the therapeutic relationship.
Yes, yes. And these are the tips people like me get, a lot beneficial from your experience, Wendy. So could you please tell us about the background or what inspired you to, before we talk about your fourth book, what inspired you to develop this online course for the fellow hypnotherapist on regression work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually remember
Okay.
why I did it. Um, well, I guess, okay, I never wanted to teach certification courses. I was already coaching people, who wanted a deeper understanding of the therapeutic process of regression. I get a lot of NLP practitioners coming to me and saying, I've tried everything. I got this client and they just like come undone in the session, and I don't know what to do. And I go, yeah, because you can't remove an emotional problem. You need to use the regression for that. That's what it's for. And so they said, well, I wasn't really taught a lot. I mean, I know how to do a regression, but I wasn't really taught a lot about it. And so I thought, well, this information needs to be provided. And so I actually built the courses before I wrote the book.
Okay, so first the course was developed and then comes the book.
Yeah, because
Oh.
I built the course itself is more of it's more of the nuts and bolts of the why behind what we do, because my focus is when you're facilitating regression hypnotherapy, you can't follow a script. A protocol is simply a set of steps. This needs to be completed before, so we need to complete the setup. And here's how we know that the setup is complete before we do this step. That's kind of what the protocol is. So we want to do qualify the client before we book him in for the first session. Why? Because if you get a client that's not the right fit for you, you will not be successful. And I'll tell you what, you need wins. You need clients you can be successful with. Okay, if you get a client who's it's someone who calls you up and says, I'm on antipsychotic medications, and you just graduated from hypnosis school, you don't want to take that person on. Okay, that's going to put you out of your depths. You need clients you can be successful with, because they will teach you. They will teach you. You don't need people who are going to pull the rug out from under your confidence. You need clients that you can go, oh, that didn't work, but you're still confident enough to know, I see why, because I tried to push through. I needed to back up instead of push through, right? You begin to learn how to evaluate. And this is what I want to teach people, is how to think in your session. So you follow your protocol, but you need to know why. Why do I move to that step? Why do I use that technique and not this technique? Something as simple as just evaluating the client's issue. Do I use a surface technique, or do I use regression? So that was, for me, that was part of the qualifying process, because I didn't do surface techniques. That wasn't my thing. So if that's all a person needs, oh, that's simple. That's easy. Yeah, go see, Mary about that. I'll give you her number. That's not where I work. But if somebody came in and said, I've got this, I don't know, anything from cancer to fears and phobias and that sort of stuff, that's right in my jam right there. That's my lane. And it's like, yeah, that's someone I want to work with. But you've got to evaluate whether or not they're the right fit for where you're at. And that's qualifying. And so you don't even book them in unless you've identified that they're a fit. Then the next step is you want to let their conscious mind have the show, because it wants to control everything. That's its nature, right? So that's why I always did the intake first. I want the conscious mind, tell me your story. What's the problem? Why do you think it's a problem? How do you know you got a problem? When did it get started? Right? So this is, and it's an interactive process. And so you're building rapport and you're satisfying that conscious need. And when the conscious mind has told its entire story, it's going to be willing to listen to you. And so that is setting up for the pre-talk. So now I get to talk. There's some things you need to know before we start the hypnosis. I'd like to teach you a few things so you can be successful, because I can't do it for you. So I'm going to guide them through the pre-talk, and I'm going to teach them a few techniques during the pre-talk, or maybe during the intake. It's all kind of blended, right? And it's when the whole purpose of the pre-talk is to establish the therapeutic contract. And the contract says, you follow my instructions and I'll keep you safe.
Yes.
That's the contract. I will make it safe for you to go where you need to go to get the healing. And your agreement is that you will follow my instructions to go where you need to go to get the healing.
Wow.
So as soon as you run into an obstacle, you've got that contract. And that's when you can say, so the client says, I don't want to go there, or I'm running into a block or something. And you can say, you're right where you need to be. That's the suggestion you give them. You're right where you need to be. That feeling that's coming up right now has everything to do with the problem you're here to heal. And so then you just deal with that. So it's a very step-by-step process. That's the protocol. But all the rest is just client-centered. It's whatever the client is giving you. And so if the client is giving you a block, you're right where you need to be. That's what you need to work with. You don't say, no, we're supposed to be doing this. You know, we're supposed to be doing the parts work now, and this person says they're not becoming the child or something. It's like, well, you're getting ahead of the client. You need to be with the client where they're at.
Yes. Awesome. Wow. I love this conversation around regression work, Wendie. And coming back to your fourth book on dreams. So could you please tell about
yes,
it?
dream healing. Dream healing.
Yes, dream healing. That's the book.
Yeah, and this is actually a really great book for hypnosis practitioners. I was doing dream healing work. I started back really in seriously in 1988, and I began to learn different dream working techniques back then. But in 1988, I learned the first one that really, really works. And interestingly, that's what set me on the path of doing projective dream work, which is completely aligned with hypnotherapy. Projective dream work is, you know, all that I see is coming out of my consciousness. And so I can begin to own the contents of the dream. And in so doing, I can release uncomfortable feelings, because that's what dreams will show us. Or I can learn certain things that I need to learn, and that's what dreams show us. And so that's all we're really working with in a regression session. We're just working with a dream, because the content of an event is how the client remembers it. It's never exactly what happened. It's only the information that they downloaded from that event at that time. And you already know this. When a person is in a fear response, they're in a stress response, and stress inhibits cognition. So when a person is feeling a lot of fear, they can't think. And their scope of awareness is going to go like this. They're going to be focused on specifically the threat and nothing else. Mm-hmm. And so when we start to release that fear, we open up the scope of awareness, and they begin to notice other things that are happening in that situation that they didn't have awareness of at the time. Because the subconscious mind is picking it up all the time, right? But the conscious mind isn't. And this is the trick. We're taking the conscious mind back in time, so to speak. It's the conscious mind that's doing the work.
Okay.
Okay, the subconscious mind doesn't really have a problem. It's the conscious mind gets stuck at a certain age and it doesn't have the resources it needs to be able to move on from that event. So this is where dream healing was really helpful for me, because it gave me the foundation for thinking about memories. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with memories. Our dreams are really created out of our memories. It's the bits and pieces from our personal experiences are reassembled and create a dream narrative. And that dream narrative is personally meaningful. And if you take the time to look at them, you can discover all kinds of weird, wonderful things. So this is a healer's guide to uncovering the secret messages of your dreams. It's specifically written for the practitioner. Anybody can do this. It's specifically for you to work with your dreams, but what you learn from working with your own dreams will make you a better hypnotherapist.
Yes.
You will get much more comfortable stepping into someone else's dream. And that's what's happening when you got a person into an event and there they are, there you've got their grown up there and you've got their 2-year-old and you've got mom in there dropping them off at the daycare and you're there with them too.
Yes.
And so that's the thing, you begin to experience it. You can see the scene as the client describes it to you. And you can hear what's going on as they describe it to you. And this is, and you begin to, when you do dream working, you begin to notice little turns of phrases that can be very, very meaningful. And this is at every phase of the work that you're doing. For example, you might be talking to an anxiety client and they'll say, I feel like I'm walking on thin ice all the time. And like, that's a metaphor, right? But it brings up an image. That's a dream.
Yes.
It holds meaning. So then I start to wonder and I think, oh, who's the thin ice?
Yeah.
Who are they creeping around, right? Why do they have to be? And how long's that been a problem? When did that fit? What's the feeling of walking on thin ice and they go, oh, I'm really scared? And you go, yeah, where did that feeling get started?
Okay.
It's just one little sentence and it can flesh out an entire lifetime experience.
Wow.
So this book here, it covers all kinds of stuff that we do in hypnosis sessions, particularly parts work. So if you do parts therapy, then you'll find that this will really clarify a lot of the things from the point of view of working with clients.
Yeah. And there is also a supporting online course based on this.
There's one right on my website. So tribeofhealers.com. And there's lots of courses there. There's a free course there. For new students, there's the free course. It basically teaches you how to structure your practice. So the things I've been talking about, qualifying your client, marketing, those sorts of things. It's all kind of laid out in a step-by-step way. And that can be helpful for anybody that's in any kind of a healing practice. I've had like Reiki practitioners say, wow, I learned so much from your course, and it's free. So you can get that just by subscribing to my list. You'll get lots of free stuff. Once you're on the list, I send out free reports and stuff. There's lots of videos, blog posts, and what have you that's specific to regression hypnosis. All the courses are online. You can take them, do them at your own time. The main one, which is really the devil's therapy, is the Ready for Regression course. And that's the how to think about setting up so that things happen, how to think about inner child work, how to think about releasing work, how to think about forgiveness work, as well as how to facilitate it as well. But it's more about the why behind those things.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for these beautiful books and the online courses for the community of hypnotherapists, Wendie. And I owe you a lot for my work, for your guidance, and you're like my, go-to person wherever I feel stuck or needed guidance, and your support, your experience has immensely benefited me. So that's the reason I wanted to make this interview. And friends, whoever is watching this interview, I'll make sure all the links for the Wendy's books and online courses, everything is given in the YouTube description. And if you want to get in touch with Wendy, also you can drop her, contact her through website, for any questions and further support. And thank you once again for this beautiful talk, Wendy. Regression
The
has
pleasure
always
is on.
been imagined as something scary, but it is the most beautiful thing. It can happen to anyone. That's a beautiful process. That it's closest thing to my heart, or I can proudly call myself, being trained and guided by you all. So thank you very much, and thanks for your time, Wendy.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for, sharing this time with you. I love you. You're a wonderful interviewer. I love the gift of the question, and you have given me many gifts here today. So I thank you as well.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you once again. Bye.
Bye-bye.